For many Africans, from the moment of awakening to the realities of the world until their last breath, a nagging question persists. Why is there such widespread contempt and hatred towards black people? This question is not unique to a few, but is a common reflection among black individuals, given the seemingly unjustified and extreme nature of this global sentiment. Anti-black racism isn't confined to a single region. It's a worldwide issue. From the West's disregard to the perceived aggression in the Arab world, and similar attitudes in Russia, India, China, Latin America, and even against indigenous black populations in Oceania, this form of racism is a universal challenge. Black people often find themselves marginalized and, more often than not, occupy the lowest socioeconomic strata across the globe. But what are the roots of anti-black racism? How did it emerge and proliferate across different cultures and continents? This complex issue, deeply embedded in history, follows a traceable trajectory, revealing the mechanisms that have perpetuated it over time. Between the 17th and 19th centuries, Western literature was rife with texts that insulted and degraded Africans. Influential thinkers like Gobineau, Kant, Hegel, Berkeley, and Voltaire contributed to the myth of white superiority and black inferiority. This era also saw the rise of scientific racism, which attempted to justify racial hierarchies through pseudo-scientific methods like skull measurements. A racial hierarchy was propagated, placing whites at the top, blacks at the bottom, and other ethnic groups like Arabs and Asians in intermediate positions. In the 19th century, Charles Darwin's discovery that humans evolved from apes was twisted by some in the European elite to further degrade Africans, associating them closely with apes and spreading the notion that they were less than human. During this time, Western powers, having colonized much of the world, had access to many archaeological sites. Discoveries that suggested a significant black presence in ancient civilizations, like that of pharaonic Egypt, were downplayed or ignored as they contradicted the narrative of white supremacy. Cheikh Anta Diop, a noted historian, highlighted how Egyptologists initially marveled at the achievements of ancient Egypt, but later resisted the idea that it was a predominantly black civilization. This resistance was part of a broader effort to erase the contributions of black people from history. Victor Hugo, a prominent French writer, echoed these sentiments, depicting Africa as a land without history or value until it was touched by Europeans. His views represented a common European perspective that saw Africa as a land to be conquered and civilized. The colonial era thus cemented a global perception of racial hierarchy, with Western civilization viewed as superior. This notion was accepted by many of the colonized peoples and reinforced by Christian institutions. This ideology of racial superiority and inferiority not only solidified existing prejudices in the Arab-Muslim world, but also introduced these ideas to other cultures, leading to a widespread dehumanization of black people globally. In this video, I will provide a comprehensive timeline for global anti-black racism, tracing back to the beginnings of monumental architecture in Egyptian civilization about 5,000 years ago, up until its decline around 2,700 years ago. It is said that black people were the preeminent rulers of the earth. Pharaonic Egypt's influence extended far beyond its regional boundaries, impacting and inspiring civilizations across Asia, America, and Europe. This era marked the first wave of globalization, spearheaded by the Egyptians. According to historical perspectives like those of Antoine Fabre d'Olivet, during this period, the black race was at the forefront, wielding significant power and leading in scientific advancements. The dominance of Africans was so pronounced that creating any form of segregationist system against them was unimaginable, similar to the current impossibility of imposing such systems on powerful white European nations. This comprehensive superiority in various domains is believed to be why the seeds of racism only began to be sown and spread when Egypt started its decline, opening a chapter in the history of racial discrimination. In the book of Genesis from the Bible, there's a story about Noah and his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, who repopulated the earth after the great flood. One day, Noah got drunk and was uncovered in his tent. Ham saw his father's nakedness and told his brothers, who then covered Noah without looking at him. When Noah woke up and learned what happened, he cursed Ham's son, Canaan, to be a slave to his brothers. This story has been interpreted as a foundation for anti-black racism. It suggests that Ham identified with black people and his descendants were cursed because of his actions. This curse was historically used to justify slavery and racial discrimination. The sons of Ham included Canaan, Mizraim, a reference to Egypt, Cush, Sudan, and Punt, a reference to the African Great Lakes region, linking them to various African and Near Eastern regions. The narrative implies that this biblical story was a myth created to justify the conquest of lands historically belonging to black people, like Canaan and Egypt. This myth also played a role in the early days of Christianity. During the 7th century, when Islam emerged, Jewish tribes were present in Arabia, a region also influenced by Roman colonization and Christianity. The biblical curse of Ham, which historically linked black people to a cursed lineage from Noah, was known in Arab culture, though not explicitly stated in the Quran. Influential Islamic scholars like the Persian Imam Tabari in the 9th century, and later, the Arab historian Ibn Khaldun, perpetuated a racial hierarchy derived from Noah's sons. According to Tabari, Shem fathered the Arabs, prophets, and virtuous people. Ham was the progenitor of black people and Ethiopians, believed to have unfaithful descendants. This hierarchy was further colored by a belief that Ham's descendants turned black as a punishment for his disobedience during the time of Noah. It's a common misconception that racism was absent in early Arab societies because they enslaved people from various ethnicities. However, a hierarchy existed even among slaves. European slaves were often integrated as concubines or wives, whereas so-called sub-Saharan Africans were relegated to the most menial and strenuous tasks. Mark Perry, a scholar, notes that in the Arab Muslim world, Africans and those with black skin were typically viewed negatively, often stereotyped as lazy, untrustworthy, and intellectually inferior. They were also unfairly characterized as having unpleasant body odor, being prone to violence, and engaging in sexual excesses. It remains unclear whether these racist perceptions originated within Arab culture or were influenced by European attitudes. In the Middle Ages, Christian Europe started to depict black people in association with the devil in various artworks. However, this portrayal didn't have a significant impact at the time. The Moors, who were black Berbers from North Africa, along with the Arabs, ruled over Spain and played a crucial role in reintroducing advanced knowledge and culture to Europe. Their skin color wasn't a major point of prejudice. Instead, the Europeans focused on their Islamic faith. Historical European texts reflect more surprise and novelty at their dark skin, with descriptions like incredibly dark and black as melted pitch, indicating it was something new and unfamiliar to them. The real roots of anti-black racism in the West began to take hold during the era of European global exploration and conquest. As Europeans traveled and colonized various parts of the world, their attitudes towards black people began to shift, laying the groundwork for the systemic racism that would develop. The European slave trade, which began in the 15th century, after Europeans overthrew the Moors and Arabs in their own lands, marked a pivotal moment in history. When Europeans arrived in Africa, particularly in the Gulf of Guinea, they encountered not an inferior people, but rather a continent rich with sophisticated empires. Contrary to the notion of intellectual inferiority, the Europeans had previously been influenced by the Moors, known for their advanced knowledge. However, the peaceful nature of the societies south of the Sahara, guided by the Egyptian principle of Mahat, meant they lacked strong military defenses. This, coupled with their geographical proximity to America, made them prime targets for European slavers. The Europeans then forced these Africans to labor in the newly conquered lands of America, playing a crucial role in the development of modern Western civilization. The slave trade began a process of dehumanizing black people, with Europeans needing to justify this exploitation by portraying Africans as subhuman. This dehumanization was a key factor in the birth of anti-black racism in the West. African characteristics and identity were depicted as primitive and inferior, a narrative perpetuated by European literature and thought. This racism was reinforced by the biblical curse of Ham, which some used to suggest that black people were destined for enslavement. This notion gained widespread acceptance in Europe, further entrenching racist ideologies. Key figures like Montesquieu during the Renaissance period echoed these sentiments, questioning the humanity of black people and associating blackness with negative attributes. This period marked the solidification of black as a symbol of negativity in European languages and thought, forming a cornerstone of anti-black racism that would persist for centuries. Today, the legacy of anti-black racism continues to influence global structures and power dynamics. The Western world, having established its dominance partly through such racism, rarely confronts this aspect of its history in depth. Racism is ingrained and systemic, perpetuated through various means. 1. Historical omission. There's a consistent pattern of omitting black people and their contributions from historical narratives. 2. Language and cultural references. Common phrases and cultural references often have roots in racist ideologies, such as those derived from the biblical curse of Ham. Terms like black market or black sheep carry negative connotations associated with the color black. 3. Media portrayal. The media frequently focuses on the negative aspects of Africa, perpetuating a one-sided, often bleak image of the continent and its people. These issues are further compounded by policies that maintain economic disparities, keeping African nations and black people in lower socioeconomic positions globally. This systemic approach to racism ensures its persistence and makes challenging it a complex, multifaceted endeavor. Racism's impact on African identities and societies has been profound and far-reaching. Colonial and racist ideologies have drastically reshaped perceptions of Africa and its people. Many Africans, influenced by these narratives, have come to view their history as insignificant and themselves as intellectually inferior. This has been further ingrained through the adoption of religions and languages that propagate negative images of blackness. Frantz Fanon poignantly captured this dilemma, suggesting that for many black people, the only perceived path to a better destiny is through adopting white characteristics. This mindset has given rise to colorism, where lighter skin is often valued more highly than darker skin. As a result, practices like skin bleaching and hair straightening have become prevalent, driven by a desire to align with these imposed standards of beauty and worth. This deep-seated racism has also had dire social and political consequences. Some African leaders, adopting these devaluing perspectives, have shown disregard for the well-being of their people, responding brutally to dissent. In South Africa, economic frustrations have sometimes manifested as aggression towards other Africans perceived as even lower in the societal hierarchy. In the United States, similar dynamics have contributed to violence within black communities. Such behaviors reflect a form of internalized self-hatred, a tragic consequence of centuries of racist ideology that has dehumanized black people and distorted their self-perception and interactions.